pleased to be joined by Phil Steele on this Monday morning. Phil, John Morris from Waco, good morning to you, and thanks for your time.
Well, there's that familiar voice, John, that I always enjoy hearing over the summer and when I listen to a Baylor game.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You're always very kind and great to have you on with us. How has the build-up and the release and leading into the season been for you this year?
Oh, my goodness, John. I'll tell you what. This year I talked to 133 of the 138 coaches out there, going over their rosters with them. And each coach would start the conversation with, "Hey, how you doing, Phil?" Expecting me to say, "Oh, great. How about yourself?" And each time I would say, "How am I doing? I'm doing fantastic. There is no second spring portal window. I don't have to rewrite 138 teams all in the month of May and try to get this thing out of here by June." And the interesting thing, John, is almost every coach responded with, "You know what, Phil? We had more of a team this spring than we have the last 4 years because we knew the team we took into the spring was the one we were going to take into the fall. We could coach him harder. We could list a player third string. He wasn't going anywhere. The players could bond together, knowing their buddy wasn't going to leave them after spring, and players didn't have to worry about being replaced after the second portal window." I think we're going to see a better brand of football this year.
Yeah, that's a great point. We mentioned that earlier. That's big for the coaches. That's big for you in doing the magazine also, isn't it?
Massive. Yes. It was, having to rewrite all these teams, switching and rewrite each position on 138 teams, all in the month of May, while trying to talk to 133 coaches and update all my power ratings. We actually had some typos in last year's magazine, which surprisingly got through, but this year was much smoother. And thank God.
What's the give us a little background. I know you talk to all the coaches, and you got some guys and girls probably that are working with you. What's the team approach here? How much of that research do you get help with?
I've got 10 to 15 people work for me. We go 7 full months working on this magazine. It's got 376 pages. They compile my team pages for me as far as the players, get all the stats updated on there, the sheets that I send to the coaches. But I do write each of the 138 teams myself. I do it in a 3 write-through process. The first write-through is post. This starts the Sunday after Thanksgiving. The second one is pre-spring when you get the roster, and the third one is after talking to the coaches. But they handle all that stuff with the stats on the right-hand page, statistical leaders, records for the last 10 years, series records. I pretty much stick to writing each of the 138 teams myself.
You got a full plate, a hugely full plate. All right, let's talk about Baylor. Let's talk about the Big 12. In general, you've got a very good national perspective. What are your thoughts about the Big 12 going into this year?
I like it. I think you take a look at the two teams at the very top of the Big 12, which are Texas Tech and BYU. Both, I think, are legitimate title contenders this year. When you look at Texas Tech, when I wrote the magazine, John, on June the 5th, we were sending it to the press. I was about 90% sure that Brendan Sorsby was not going to be able to play. So all my power ratings were already adjusted for that. I was surprised when they announced he would, and then switched them back to where they were when he wasn't. So the fact Sorsby's not there does not affect my outcome at all. I actually have him favored in all 12 games. Their 2 toughest road games are at Baylor and at Cincinnati. I like what McGuire's done. Of course, having all that NIL money sure helps. But you look at the defensive front 7, I think you got 6 guys that are NFL caliber. Offense, they've got one of the best running back rooms in the country. In fact, Coach McGuire, I was talking to him about Cam Dickey and Jacoby Williams, who both returned. He was probably most excited about Quentin Joyner, who missed last year with injury. That's a 3-headed monster they got there, plus a veteran offensive line. They are loaded. And then BYU, going over the roster with Coach Sataki for the 11th straight year. I actually feel this is by far, or is his best team, I should say, that he's put on the field in his 11 years. They are big up front on the offensive line, big in the defensive front 7. They've got Bear Bachmeyer and L.J. Martin back, and they don't play Texas Tech during the regular season. But there is good depth in the Big 12. I think when you look at teams like Utah, Houston, Arizona, TCU, those are all legitimate Big 12 title contenders. So I think it's going to be a great year for the Big 12.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it for sure. Where would you slot Baylor? Where do you think Baylor fits in, at this point in the preseason?
I've got a middle of the road in the Big 12 this year, and it was interesting talking to Coach Aranda. The things you learn. I mean, first of all, I always love my conversations with Coach. He's very philosophical, and but one thing that he brought up was that last year he was still learning as a GM, and what I mean by that is he said he probably spent too much money in the wide receiver room, didn't spend enough on the offensive line, defensive line. He corrected that this year. I think the offensive line and defensive line are both going to be stronger this season. Remember last year, I expected the running back combination of Pendergrass and Washington to be dynamic. Pendergrass, of course, missed the year. Washington still got off to a great start, but then was limited down the stretch. I like the running back room with Pendergrass, Knighton, Turner. As mentioned, the offensive defensive line should be stronger. DJ Lagway is a guy that was banged up heading into last year at Florida, missed a lot of practice time. I think that affected his season. I'm looking for DJ to go back to being that type of Heisman contender that he was regarded as heading into last year. They need to get off to a great start because the end of the schedule, you look at those final 3 games, at BYU, home to Texas Tech, at Houston, probably be an underdog in all 3, but the potential's there for a better start. And, Coach Aranda, I like what he did on defense, bringing in Joe Klanderman coming in from Kansas State, bring a couple of Kansas State guys with him. I believe there's 5 coming up with them from K-State. So I think the defense will be improved, the line of scrimmage improved, and I'm pretty optimistic that Baylor can at least get back to a bowl game, if not higher than that.
Yeah, that's great assessment. We're really excited about DJ Lagway. He's come in and gosh, he's got such a great personality, great smile, and he's a good size guy, and we think that he fits Jake Spavital's offense really well, and Coach Spavital's offense fits his skill set really well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. As mentioned, Lagway missed a lot of time last spring, missed a lot of time in the summer, missed a lot of time in August heading into the season. There's a lot of question marks on him coming in, and, things didn't go so well at Florida when you fire your head coach at midseason. So I think stepping into this situation, better offense for him, 100% healthy. I'm looking for a big year from DJ.
Yeah, very much so. We're excited to have him here. Season is, 26 days away, kickoff for Baylor, and you mentioned getting off to a good start. We've got Auburn right out of the blocks in Atlanta. That's a really big game and a really good opportunity, isn't it, for Baylor to open the season?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think being stronger at the line of scrimmage is going to help them. Now, I'll say this. Alex Golish really impressed me at South Florida. When he took over, they had a team that had a couple of 1-win seasons heading the 2 years prior, but he laid it out for me. He said, Phil, we're going to do this, this, and this. The reason we're going to be different is this, this, and this. And it all came to fruition. 3 winning seasons. And last year, they were an American title contender. Bringing Byron Brown back at quarterback is huge. This guy had over 3,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing. They've got a familiar face at the running back position in Bryson Washington, right, who should be 100% healthy this year. He's coming off ankle surgery. They got Jeremiah Cobb and Davenport there. This is a very good Auburn team. I think that's going to be an excellent opening game and probably a pivotal game for both team seasons.
Yeah, I think so too. Really huge, great stage, playing there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, season opening game. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Nationally, who do you like nationally to be in the college football playoff and contend for a national championship this year?
Yeah, well, I think out of the Big 12, they've got 2 possible teams, Texas Tech and BYU, which I touched on. Out of the ACC, I think Miami is the best team there. And if you have one question mark with Miami heading into the year, it would be that they have just one returning starter on the offensive line. However, I've been talking to Mario Cristobal since his days back at Florida International, way back when. This guy always develops a top-notch offensive line. He'll have one. They bring in Darian Mensah from Duke. Cooper Barkade is top receiver from Duke. And that's added to Mark Fletcher at running back, who had a great playoff, and Malachi Toney, I think he's a Heisman contender for the fact that, he had 7 passes last year, was one of their top runners, was their top receiver, is also a kick returner and punt returner. This guy's electric. If the offensive line comes along, which I know it will, I think Miami's got a great shot, and they were basically one play away from winning it all last year. When you go to the SEC, I think there's two really top contenders in Georgia and Texas. When I look at Georgia this year, Gunnar Stockton is my under-the-radar Heisman pick. He's 20-1 odds right now. Stockton's a guy that was great on fourth down in the fourth quarter. He had a 16-2 ratio against ranked teams last year. They've got a veteran offensive line, an outstanding running back core led by Nate Frazier. And defensively, all three units rank in my top 10. Special teams ranks in my top 5. This is a loaded Georgia team. And then with Texas, I know Arch Manning got off to a slow start last year, but they had just one returning starter on the offensive line. This year, they have a veteran offensive line. Last year, his top running back had 597 yards. This year, they added a 1,000-yard rusher from NC State in Hollywood Smothers, a 1,000-yard rusher from Arizona State and Raleek Brown. They already returned Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley, a receiver, and then they add in a Cam Coleman. Much better supporting cast. Arch got much better as the season went on. If you watch him at the end of the year, he looked like the Arch Manning you thought you'd see at the start of the year. Watch for him to have a big year, and Texas has a top 10 defense as well. And then out of the Big Ten, I think they've got 3 legitimate contenders this year. Ohio State has got Julian Sand back at quarterback. They've got some guy, Jeremiah Smith, a wide receiver that NFL scouts are drooling over. Their offensive line, I'd listed them above average last year. This year, I rated them number 2 in the country. They got 4 starters back, and they've got a 1,000-yard running back in Bo Jackson. I feel it's the best offense in the country. Defensively, they do lose a lot. But remember last year, like on the defensive line, for example, they lost 2 number 1s, a number 2 and a number 6 draft pick. This year, they only lose a number 2 and a number 6. So they're actually a little more veteran up front. Linebacking core is the question. With Indiana, Coach Cignetti will have Indiana contending again. I'm going to take you back to my first conversation with Coach Cignetti with James Madison when they moved to FBS. They had just lost their second-team All-American quarterback, and I had question marks because the top guy had 7 passes the previous year. I'm like, Coach, you're going to take a step back at quarterback. I mean, you're moving up from FCS to FBS, and you lose your All-American. He's like, Phil, I have an all-conference quarterback every year. I'll have one this year. And guess what he did? And so I just assumed that we're going to work his magic with Josh Hoover, who's a great piece to work with. This guy's got 10,000 career passing yards. They add in a Nick Marsh, a receiver from Michigan State, to go along with Charlie Becker. Strong on both the offense and defensive lines. I'm favored in 11 games. The only game I don't is that home game against Ohio State, and I've got that one as pick 'em. I think they're a national title contender. And then how about Oregon? I was surprised Dante Moore, who would have been the second pick overall in the draft, turned that down to come back. Last year, Evan Stewart basically missed the year. DeCorian Moore missed half the year with injuries, top 2 receivers. Those guys are both back. The offensive line, solid. All 4 starters return on the defensive line. It's a loaded Oregon team. They do have to play Ohio State and USC on the road, but they can afford to slip up a game or two, still make the playoff, and if they make the playoff, they're a threat. And then the final team I'll mention is the one I picked for the top, and that is Notre Dame. And when I look at Notre Dame, first of all, I love their motto this year, leave no doubt. So, they got left out of the playoffs last year. They don't want to do that again this year. You look at them defensively, they held opponents to 95 yards per game, below their average last year. This year, they got 9 starters back on defense. Offensively, I rate them, by the way, the number 1 defense in the country with my number 5 D-line, number 1 linebackers, number 1 DBs. Offensive line, I'm on the Joe Moore Award Committee, one of the 21 award committees I'm on. I rate them the number 1 offensive line in the country. I think they've got 4 NFL caliber offensive linemen returning from last year. They've got a veteran quarterback in C.J. Carr, who's the Heisman frontrunner. And then you look at the schedule this year, John, and the schedule is very manageable. It's number 66. The only 2 games that, in my mind, they're not a double-digit favorite, are home against Miami and then at BYU. Now, those 2 teams are both playoff contenders, but I think the Irish are better than both and have a great shot at running the table. The big question for them, can they overcome that bye week? Teams that have the benefit, I'm putting that in quote marks there, benefit from the bye are 1-7. Only Coach Cignetti has been able to win off a bye. I mean, when you have 3-4 weeks off and your opponent just played last week, that's almost a negative factor. If they overcome the bye, I think Notre Dame's got a great shot at winning it all.
Wow, great information. Appreciate that. Final thought, you've got your finger on the pulse of college football as well as anyone. What do you have any strong thoughts about CFP staying at 12, going to 16, possibly going to 24? How do you look at that?
Yeah, personal preference would be let's not make it 24. I think once you get to 24, it becomes a battle of attrition in the playoffs. You go back a couple of years ago, Notre Dame was playing Ohio State, and they had lost one of their top defensive linemen, one of their top offensive linemen during the playoff run. And I don't want to see the healthiest team win it all. I want to see the best team win it all. I do think we're going to see an expansion. There's just too much movement for it. So let's see if we go to 16. But I'm happy with 12, even though Notre Dame got left out last year. I think the fact that they won't be putting 2 group of 6 teams in the playoff is going to make it. I mean, wouldn't Notre Dame have given both Oregon or Ole Miss a much better game than the group of 6 opponents did last year? I think getting that corrected helps the 12-team playoff.
Very cool. PhilSteele.com is the website. Magazines available. Let me get this right. Barnes & Noble's, right? And Books A Million?
Yep. The only 2 brick-and-mortar stores out there, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, 376 pages, John. You get 2 full pages on all 138 teams, same amount of coverage on a team like Sac State or North Dakota State that you get on Alabama and Ohio State, 2 full pages.